All right. Well, thank you so much for attending. I'm going to jump into the presentation. Doesn't look like anyone else is going to join us. But thank you again. And as we discussed, these are the protocols for attending a Zoom meeting. I'm sure you're quite up to speed with that. And if you have any questions, please do use the chat function though. But I definitely will leave time at the end for questions. Okay. So tonight we're here to discuss the exploration that the Town of Highlands is underway with for the potential to launch a program called the Town of Highlands Community Power Program, which is a CCA program. It's a program that is focused on community energy on behalf of their community members. And the images on the left indicate that this is something that is being done significantly for the reasons for a way to promote renewables in a way that's very cost effective and is very consumer friendly, is very easy, transparent for the community members within the community. The Town of Highlands chose to guide them through this process the organization shown in the lower right of the slide. That logo, that name is Jewel Community Power, and it's a division of Jewel Assets, which is a company based in Westchester. And they are one of the state-approved administrators for these CCA programs. And Jewel, to manage these programs, to organize them within the Hudson Valley, to have a resource within the communities for this exploration phase, and if the program launches, to be there to do resource support within the community, chose Hudson Valley Energy, which is my nonprofit. The program focused on these community energy efforts. So I will, as explained on the next slide, explain what CCA is. And spelled out here, CCA stands for Community Choice Aggregation. And so I'll explain what it is, including, as shown in the second bullet, what are the benefits to CCA? And then on the assumption that this program does make sense for the community and launches and moves forward, we'll talk about whether the program affects or who it affects within the community. Not everyone will be affected. And then we will talk about it from a perspective of the Orange and Rockland Bill, which is, I think, a very practical way to understand what this program is and what it isn't, and to understand some of the common confusions. And then on the assumption that it does move forward, we'll talk about next steps. And then before stopping for open questions, I will cover a few slides of frequently asked questions, or FAQs. So what is CCA? Community choice aggregation. To explain the term, it's where communities can aggregate together to give a new choice for energy supply. So that's the very simple explanation of community choice aggregation. Going to the bullets on the right, it's an energy purchase program that was authorized by the state through the Public Service Commission in April of 2016. And when we say it is a communities, it's for municipalities to aggregate energy demand to negotiate bulk purchase of electricity supply. Now, to folks listening to these presentations, this might sound familiar because this idea of choosing electricity supply is something that every utility customer has had the ability to do since the late 1990s. And what is different with this program is that instead of an individual customer making the choice and having to navigate the options and entering into a contract, the municipality acts on behalf of the community members to give everyone a choice of a new supply option. For many, it will become the default supply choice. That's what the third bullet is referencing. So we're shifting from one default situation, one opt-out situation, where the state designated that the utility company is the default chooser of the supply option, to a default choice made by your town, your local municipality, in aggregation with other communities, with the support of Jewel Community Power and my organization. The last bullet, again, all energy customers within a community, if it launches, are eligible to participate, but some are automatically included in this new opt-out. So some folks may have to say if they don't want to be a part of the program, which anybody can do at any time. And part of the way this is structured and what my organization does is make it as clear as possible what this program is and make it easy to get out or back in or in for the first time to the program if someone is not automatically included. So as I said with the agenda, we're going to look at it through a utility bill. And this is an Orange and Rockland bill, and it's a generic one. And there's a number of sections within the bill. A lot of people don't realize that there's a number of sections shown within one utility bill. The first section I have denoted here in the red box is the electricity delivery section, the delivery charges for getting the power from where it's made to the user, to the customer in this case of this bill, the owner of this bill. This is, since the late 1990s in New York State and other deregulated states, this is the only section of the bill that Orange and Rockland actually makes money on for electricity. When the state deregulated the utility markets, they changed the role of utility companies from kind of a soup to nuts provider to delivery companies, equivalent, if you will, in an analogy to UPS or FedEx or the Postal Service, companies that get paid to reliably deliver something to customers. They don't make the packages, UPS, the Postal Service, FedEx, but they make sure that the packages get from the maker of the package to the customers. And the same equivalent analogy applies here. Utility companies don't own the production of the power. They don't create the electrons. They don't make the electricity, but they make sure that it gets from those who do make the electricity to the customers. And all of those services of delivering the power, including billing service, customer service to answer questions, storm damage repair, maintenance of the infrastructure itself, including the meter on your home, that's all part of getting the power to you or to the customers, part of delivery. What is the focus of our program is this section in the green box, the supply charges section. This is the charges for how the power is made and by who it's made, where it's made. So this is a pass-through by the utility company to those power producers or middlemen companies that help in getting it from the suppliers to the infrastructure of the utility company. There are 3 line items in the electricity delivery charges section. I'm sorry, in the electricity supply section, and you can see them if I put my arrow over them. 1, 2, 3 line items. Merchant function charge, forecast, market supply charge, and a market supply charge adjustment. These are the rates in this column, and these are shown in cents, which get multiplied by the usage. So this customer used 502 kilowatt hours. It's on every line, 502 kilowatt hours, and here the first 2 lines add up to 502, which is something that Orange and Rockland does. But 502 kilowatt hours used by this customer gets multiplied on each line item for different portions of these sections for either total delivery charges or, in this case, total supply charges. These numbers here are the rates, the cents per kilowatt hour. So this is 0.494 cents per kilowatt hour. This is 5.852 cents per kilowatt hour. When you add these 3 numbers up in this column, you get this number here, 5.906 cents per kilowatt hour. So in this example bill, the supply charge rate is 5.906 cents per kilowatt hour. When you multiply 5.906 per kilowatt hour times 502 kilowatt hours, you get $29.65. Just, cents adding up to dollars. So that's how this works. And this is the section that is the potential to change through our program. The 3 line items are an indication that Orange and Rockland, the original default situation, is in place. When a customer engages with a third party, either on their own or through a CCA program, those 3 line items are going to become just 1 line item, as I'll show you in a moment. But for clarification's sake, to address something as a common confusion, something that is often confused when people are thinking about our program is the benefits of solar, be it solar on their home or business or a community solar subscription. People think that when they put solar on their home or business or they subscribe to a community solar farm, in Orange and Rockland territory that this is their supply. It is not. And here's the indication. This is the section on the right in the purple box where those benefits would show up for being a solar customer. So it would, in essence, typically be a reduction, a negative in this section, an adjustment down. Very importantly, though, it is not the supply of the customer. These supply line rates are associated with a supplier, and the customer's usage is multiplied by the rate here. There is no amount of usage here for a particular month. So the benefits of having solar are not based on how much a customer uses in each month. The benefit is derived from however much of a solar system that they're owning, leasing, or subscribing to, in the case of community solar, is generating in that month. So how much is generated by the actual solar panels has nothing to do with how much consumption the customer has. And so supply and solar are two separate transactions. They live in two separate parts of the bills. They're two separate ways that people can support renewables on the New York State grid, but they are not the same thing. All right, now getting back to the supply and what changes when somebody is in a CCA program, or if they engage a third-party supplier on their own, is these three line items disappear. Here's another example bill. It's a different example bill. You see the kilowatt hours have changed, but the same number of delivery charges line items, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 line items for delivery. That's still delivery charges, but the supply charges section has gone from this, all of this with the 3 line items, down to this one single line item. And it says your total supplier charge is $71.88, but that information in detail exists in a separate page. For those of you who have done this, you know that. And here's a snapshot of that second page from the same bill. And it identifies the third-party supplier, that it's Ambit up here. And it shows, you can see the same usage, 1,261 kilowatt hours. But then here's that third-party suppliers, Ambit in this case, this is their rate, 5.7 cents per kilowatt hour, multiplied by that kilowatt hours there, to the total dollar charges, which is consistent here and here and here. So that's the way it works. And simply, if a program launches in the Town of Highlands, and the Town of Highlands works with a number of other communities to pick a supplier with a fixed electricity supply rate, it will be the same rate. This number equivalent, some cents per kilowatt hour, will be the same every single month for an extended period, likely 2, 3, perhaps longer years. Every single month, this rate will be the same. It'll get multiplied by whatever number of kilowatt hours that customer has used. And that is it for the program. There's no other charges, there's no other fees, there's never any penalties. This is just a public benefit offered by this partnership of communities with the supplier, with the administrator guiding them to offer this public benefit to community members. This is a revisiting of those supply option that people have available to them. I call this my menu slide, like a menu in a restaurant, where this would be the appetizer section, and you have the ability to choose one. The original default choice is shown as number 1, where it's a New York State determined opt-out, that if a customer does not make a decision to go into a private party contract, number 2, the utility company is the original default. That's why the asterisk is up here. But this is available since deregulation went into effect. Anybody could enter a market option, like with Green Mountain Energy or Ambit, as we saw in the previous example, to be an alternative to the utility company making that choice. If a community moves forward with the CCA program, that becomes a new choice option for supply. It becomes the new default option. That's what the 2 asterisks mean here. So it's a new default option, replacing this one for the majority, for all people who are in this original situation, with some exceptions that I'll explain. And this is the new option. All of these options are always available to every single customer, though, in a community. It doesn't, just because this new option is here does not mean these others are taken away. Anybody could say no to this at any time and either go back to the utility company making that decision, or they may choose to enter into their own contract for a third-party supplier. So why would we do this? What are the benefits? Well, the first is this movement from a utility company's decision, where the state empowered the utility to make the decision for customers, to a local decision of a default supplier. So it's really playing on the home rule benefit available in New York State for local decision making, bringing the decision making closer to the community members within these partner communities. It's a way that you can leverage bulk buying strategy through aggregation to get a very competitive rate for electricity supply. And I'll show you how beneficial this can be and has been in live programs. But it is something that absolutely eliminates price volatility through a long-term fixed rate. And my simplified electricity rate graph emphasizes this. A CCA program rate is a fixed rate. So this is a chart showing cents per kilowatt hour, and just in a abstract way, over some time period, where the y-axis would be the cents per kilowatt hour, the horizontal axis would be time. Every single month in this period demonstrated here for a CCA program is the same exact rate. That's why it's a flat line, and it's our green line here. This is something that is always the same rate, versus if the utility company is making the choice, it fluctuates every single month. And that's what this market rate indicates. That's what the utility company offers. And so there's a lesson here. This is a very competitive rate. The bulk buying, this leveraging bulk buying, in essence, is like Costco or BJ's Wholesale. By aggregating together, you basically have the power of numbers. You get a better rate. But there are times when the utility rate can and likely will be lower than our program rate. But it's the important question is, what is the average of this red dotted line, and how does that compare to the green line? And the expectation in the design of this program is that the green line will be better than the average of the red dotted line. And I'll show you a real life example of how that has been working with a live program here in the Hudson Valley shortly. For us, again, too, there's this win-win-win scenario where not only can you get a competitive and no volatility rate. For us, the idea, too, is that the default choice, the sourcing for that default choice, is renewable electricity, hydropower, wind power, or solar power only, from New York State sources, even better. So it's from New York State sources. So this is a very powerful way to accelerate the transition to renewable energy. And last on this list, but certainly by no means least, is the consumer protection elements of this program. One of the benefits is choosing a third-party supplier, vetting the opportunities out there, making sure the contracts are not challenging or have anything bad in them. That is eliminated by this program. There is no contract for the community members. It's really like being given a membership to a public pool, and you can get in or get out whenever you want. There is no cost to be in it. There's no cost to get out of it. There's no funny business. It is a fixed rate. It's not something that balloons later within the program. It is very much structured to be very transparent and simple. So numerous consumer protection elements are offered through the program. This is how the program's been doing in a live program. This partnership of Jewel and Hudson Valley Energy, working with these 6 communities, Clarkstown, Orangetown, Haverstraw, Nyack, South Nyack, and Upper Nyack, all in Rockland County, formed a partnership that's called Rockland Community Power. We obtained, through a competitive bid process, this 100% renewable default rate at about 7.2 cents in 2020. The program started in November of 2020. And this is the fixed rate that runs all the way through October of 2022. And the purple line is also a program rate that's not 100% renewable, but was offered through the program, slightly less expensive, about 6.5 cents, for people who wanted to just save as much money as they could versus the program. And there is a little difference, about a little bit more than a half a cent difference, but this is a phenomenally good rate for 100% renewable. To point that out, the red line back in mid 2020 was the private market. If somebody was going to get a comparable 100% renewable fixed rate supply rate from a private supplier, what I calculated on average at that time was about 9 cents per kilowatt hour. So a solid 2-cent savings in an apples to apples comparison. This shows the power of the program, and this is why we're doing it. The biggest bang for the buck is to take advantage of a 100% renewable rate to bring all the benefits of promoting renewables in New York State and be part of this program. for a very competitive rate. And you can see that, our program rate, just line to line comparison, is much better than an individual could do for a comparable product. Now let's talk about what a lot of people are concerned about, though, is the old default versus a new default, which is sort of an apples to oranges comparison, because the old default was the utility company making that supply choice, remember, number one, and that is predominantly, more than 80% non-renewable sourcing. And that is this yellow line here, which does, as we saw in my simplified graph, this is showing, in truth, it does fluctuate month to month. It happened to be down here at our non-renewable rate at the program start, November 2020, but you can see it's done this roller coaster movement and up and down. So how is it doing? You remember on the previous slide, I said it's important to evaluate the program rate by looking at the average of the utility rate. So what is the average of this yellow line? That's the blue line. This is the running average of the Orange and Rockland rate. And you can see averages being averages. Then the first month, it was the same exact number. And then the average of the first 2 months was here, and then so on. But you can see it slowly kept climbing to the point in April 2021, it was the average of the non-renewable was at the same rate of our 100% renewable. But from there, it just kept going above and above and above and keeps climbing pretty steadily, to the point where, as of June, this month that we're in now, we're well below, about 1.5 cents below the average of the utility rate. And you can see what it's done up here, some very high rates during some very high usage times for electricity. So this is showing the win-win scenario that is possible through this program. It's been very significant savings. For the community members here, it's been more than $2 million in savings since the program started. I think even more. That was a calculation back in February or March. So I think it's probably approaching $3 million in savings collectively. We're talking, but it's not insignificant. We're probably talking $100 or more per household in terms of benefit, maybe even twice that. So that is working. So you might remember, if you remember my menu slide, it's if a program launches, pretty much most of everyone who's in this choice is automatically included. And so that's what we talk about here. So generally, all customers in number one are enrolled on an opt-out basis, except for anyone, well, this is people who are in choice two, a third party. If you're in a third party already, you stay in there. You don't have to opt out. Customers that are billed based on demand charges, so larger customers, are also not automatically included. And that's because of the nature of demand charges on a utility bill and the potentially beneficial rates that go with that. Any customer that has placed a freeze or a block on their account with the utility company are also excluded. And folks who have a home energy assistance program payment set up are also excluded because of there's not a guaranteed cost savings with the program. Any one of these folks, even though they're not automatically included, they can join if they want to, and opt out if they want to. And we make it easy to do so. So everyone's automatically enrolled unless they choose to take action before the program begins. So how does the program proceed? If we move forwards, everyone will get a welcome and opt-out, what we call a welcome/opt-out letter, which explains the whole program in detail with the 2-page FAQ, explains why it's being done, what the rates are, who the company that we chose is, how you can get in or out of the program at any time. There's contact numbers, websites shown here. More public meetings are advertised through this letter, and that would come in late summer 2022. When that letter is sent to every community member that's automatically included, which is paid for by the selected supplier, there's no cost to the town to do this program. It starts an opt-out period that lasts for 30 days, and that will run into the fall of 2022. It's a period where anyone who wants to stay in choice one, they don't want any change to happen, so they don't have to jump back out. They have 30 days to say, I don't want to be part of it. But anybody could opt out at any time with no cost. And those who stay in, though, the selected default supply becomes the new default for those customers. And then ultimately it would be transferred on to Orange and customer Rockland their bills in fall of 2022. And I have to fix that 2 L's to a K. And so that's when it would go live. So some frequently asked questions. Does this program replace my utility company? No, because we do not impact the delivery charges at all. and that is the utility company's revenue source. So they are agnostic to this program. And the delivery charges pay for the maintenance. So it does not impact the second question, the reliability of electricity. Even though it's renewable sources, the introduction of sourcing onto the New York State grid is overseen by several agencies, including the New York Independent System Operator, to ensure reliability. And the utility company makes sure that there's reliability to get the delivery of electricity to the customers from wherever it's made reliably. Will the program save me money? It's possible, and it's been working quite well in the program that we showed, but it's not guaranteed. And we want to be just very flat and frank about that. What if I want to change my supply choice? It is always available to anybody. They can do any changes that they want, including if two choices are offered, they can switch from one to the other at any time. And they can do it themselves using the enrollment change form on the website. Then they can opt out or opt back in through that same way, or by calling us. And even you can do it by email to our contact email. We make it very simple. Any one method is sufficient. Do I have to stay in the program the entire time? Nope. Anybody could opt in or opt out at any time. Can I participate if I have my own solar panels or if I participate in community solar? And you might remember the purple box on the bill example I gave up above to emphasize that these are two separate decisions. So the answer is yes. If you have solar or you participate in a community solar program, you can do the supply program. They are two separate things. So what happens after the program ends? After the program ends, for the period, the municipalities can repeat the program, but if they don't, everyone automatically reverts back to the original state mandated default of having the utility company make their choice. So very simple, no additional action is necessary. So those are the most common questions that we receive. Let me stop, put up this contact information here, and give it some time in case anyone has a question. And I'll take a look at the chat box. I don't see anything in the chat box. So let me give it a moment, see if there's any questions. All right. And now I'm alone, but thank you for attending. And I'm going to stop the recording, but thank you all for being here. And contact us if you have questions.